Here I am today at the enclosed stadium, home of White Hawk Football Club, and I'm with Sophie Cook, who's been a fan here and a member, I think, for about 7 years. Sophie, tell me what drew you to White Hawk and why you made your home here.
Well, when I transitioned 7 years ago, I moved to Brighton, and I got invited along to a game by Mark Deutsch, who's heavily involved in FSE, to see what we've got here at the enclosed ground, not the stadium. If we call it a stadium, it changes the ground grading requirements very much so. But yeah, I mean, as a trans person who was newly out and working in Premier League football, it was an interesting time, because back in 2015 that there were nowhere near as many LGBT people working within sports as there are now. But even back then, coming here to White Hawk, and the fans were singing homophobia, we say no, racism, we say no, sexism, we say no. And I mean, looking back from where we are now, where most football clubs have an LGBT supporters group, it's difficult. It was sometimes easy to forget quite how far we've come in that 7 years, and how groundbreaking fans singing stuff like that back in 2015 was. So, I mean, it's a great club, and I've been involved for 7 years. I'm their equality and diversity officer, and yeah, it's just a great atmosphere.
So 2015, 7 years ago, when you transitioned from Steve to Sophie, and at that point you became the first trans woman to be working within the Premier League at AFC Bournemouth. How did that go? How did the club react? And what are your memories specifically at that time?
Well, the thing is, it was really interesting for me, because, like I say, back then there were no LGBT people working within the game. And, I mean, the first surprise for me was the fact that I still had a job, because there wasn't a precedent to tell me that this was going to be a possibility. But the thing that really overwhelmed me at that period was the amount of support that I got from the club, from the chairman, Jeff Mostyn, from our manager, Eddie Howe, and the whole of the squad. It was like everyone at the club was just really supportive. And I remember when I came out to the management and to Eddie Howe turned around to me and said, "What can I do to make this easier for you?" And the thing is, when you come out, you can't expect everyone to understand straight away, but for your boss to say something like that just tells you that this is a safe space for you to be true to yourself. And I remember the first time I met the players, we're out on the training pitch, and the boys were all off warming up, and Eddie said to me, "Are you scared?" And I said, "You know what, for the first time in my life, I'm totally at ease with who I am." So, "No, I'm not scared." And they called all the players together in a circle, and our assistant manager, Jason Tyndall, stood up and said, "I suppose you notice our photographer's changed a bit since last season. I'd like you to meet Sophie." And then our captain, Tommy Offick, just started clapping. The rest of the boys joined in. And that was it. It was that easy. And then after that training session, I sat down with a few players and answered all of their questions. And I think it was really important that I told them that this was a lifelong journey that I've been on, and the fact that actually, with the way I've been struggling with my mental health, this was actually saving my life.
So, Soph, I remember sitting on the pavement with you in Wembley. It was the Euro final, the men's finals, 2020 finals, and Wembley Way, Olympic Way, I think it's the official title, everyone calls it Wembley Way, was absolutely rammed, and it was quite imposing, quite intense, and quite fearful for me. You can tell me how you were feeling on the day itself. But I remember sitting there with a group of lads that came past, and the last one in the group clocked yourself, and then continued to watch as they walked past. I steeled myself, really, because I was expecting, or thinking that he may say something, and then what would I say, if I would say anything, or what would I do? I don't know if you noticed it on that day, but is that something that's maybe commonplace for you? And how safe do you really feel travelling to and watching football?
Yeah, I remember that day, and like you say, Wembley Way was was just rammed with people. There's so many people there, and there was a very unpleasant atmosphere. There was a lot of drinking and various other things going on that just created this atmosphere where sort of you knew that something was going to happen, something was going to go wrong. But that incident that you mentioned, I wasn't aware of that until you just mentioned it. But as a trans person, you develop these blinkers because actually, you know what? It's much better for your mental health if you don't see people giving you sideways glances and things. And I think, I mean, obviously I've had things like that in the past, but on the whole of football, I feel really safe. I remember in particular the first game that I ever went to in football that wasn't Bournemouth and it wasn't here at Whitehawk. And that was, I got invited to Brentford, back in the old Griffin Park. And anyone that knows Griffin Park knows that it had a pub on each corner of the ground. And I was in the boardroom that day, so it's like best togs, wearing a dress, sort of makeup, looking stunning. And the thing is, like, as I'm walking up to the ground, it's a beautiful sunny day, and there's fans outside the pub drinking, and I'm thinking, right, here we go, someone's going to clock me, someone's going to say something, but you know what, nothing, went in, had a great day at the game, and after the game, together with some of the people that I knew at the club, we popped into that same pub for a drink, and we're still at the bar, and this guy is staring at me in the pub, and I'm thinking, here we go, it's all gonna kick off in a minute. And then he just turned around to me and went, are you the photographer from Bournemouth? And I went, yeah. He went, oh, good on you, and bought me a drink. So the thing, and I had another incident. I got invited to Millwall, and like Steve Kavanagh, the CEO, invited me to the game. So I'm looking at that fixture list, and it's like, right, so I'm available with my son on a day when the only home game I can find is Millwall versus Leeds, which lots of football people go. In fact, lots of football people did go. Why the hell are you going to Millwall versus Leeds? And we're there, and we're in the main hospitality lounge, and I'm up at the bar trying to get a drink for myself and my son. And there's this big sort of Millwall geezer at the bar, and his man's spreading at the bar, and all of a sudden he clocks me stood next to him. And he turns around to me and he goes, I ain't seen you around here before. Are you Leeds? I went, no, I'm from Bournemouth. He went, that's all right then. And again, offered to buy me a drink. So it's really funny how, in the past, places that I would have thought were indicative of perhaps toxic masculinity have actually been really welcoming. I know, obviously, some issues still do exist within the game, and there will always be people that harbour prejudice and are inclined to act or speak upon it. But you know what, on the whole, I think over the last 7 years, the massive change that I've seen in football is the fact that LGBT fans feel comfortable going to games. LGBT fans feel comfortable taking rainbow flags to games. For me, that is the work that we've done over the last 7 years, and that is how we've changed football forever.
It's great to hear some really positive stories from you within football itself and your experiences there. If there are other clubs out there who are looking to be more welcoming to the trans community, what kind of advice would you give to them?
I think the really important thing is for clubs to actually be proactive and actually put out the messaging before the need for it arises, because one of the big barriers to inclusion and participation is that fear. And like me coming out in football, because no one had ever done it before, that's where the fear came from. So, I mean, clubs getting involved in pride events, clubs supporting their LGBT supporters groups, all of those are really positive steps. And when you're doing your kit launch, get some LGBT fans in, sort of help include the community with those campaigns, and support Football versus Homophobia Month of Action, support all of the cause days that we have within the game, and also have a zero tolerance approach to any kind of abuse or prejudicial behaviour, because it's when people turn the blind eye to things like this that that they get to fester and grow. So in the same way that I would say the same about racism, homophobia, any kind of prejudice and abusive behaviour within the game, if we have a united, unified, zero tolerance approach to it, then we can really make a difference and stamp it out and make sure that the beautiful game is as beautiful as it can possibly be.